I'm gonna start. So, hello everyone who's watching us on Facebook, and welcome to this roundtable of Feminist Fusion with these amazing five ladies. My name is Anairda. I'm a Latin American singer-songwriter and the producer of Feminist Fusion, and your host for this roundtable. And we have today the amazing Katie Omama Tokus, based in Totnes, who does soul, funk, jazz, and many other beautiful, cheeky, sometimes political, social commentary with her music. We have Alex Hart, a country and folk musician based in Devon. We have Bess or Liz from Creek Cave, who does a punk riot girl band, and she's a guitarist of those ex-guitarist of Suck My Culture and currently Creep Cave. We have Joanna Cook, an extraordinary singer of soul and rhythm and blues from Devon, and Lou Hodgkiss, who is a lyricist, co-founder of Husband and Knives, and nowadays Witches Wax to Witches, another punk feminist band. So welcome everybody, lovely ladies and everybody who are watching us. So about women musicians, I'm going to start with the first questions to all of our guests, and to give some background to this question, I'm going to base my question on a report that Media Research, TuneCore, and Believe, who are three international entertainment and digital media platforms, released 1 year ago in May, called Be the Change, Women in Music 2022. The report is an international report, revealed the challenges that women creators and executives face in the music industry. It engaged also with no male gender identities, and the report conducted interviews with independent artists from around the world, including Armenia, India, France, Lebanon, Mexico, Nigeria, Thailand, the USA, and the UK. The study unveils 4 key areas that represent substantial challenges for women in the music industry. And these 4 areas are harassment, mostly sexual harassment. The second is the perception gap, mostly how men and women are perceived in the music industry. The value gap, so how women's pay and reward are paid and reward. And the fourth is confidence. So that's what the report, and the second report on that topic, Be the Change, Women in Music 2022. So my first questions to all our guests is, what is the most challenging thing about being a female musician? We start with this so we can go to lighter topics later.
Oh.
Can I start?
Please.
After hearing, what you were talking about, the subtopics of what you just said, the question that you asked, it came to my mind the craziest thing for me and the hardest thing for me has actually been the sexual harassment that I've experienced quite a lot actually over the years. And one time in particular, when I was probably about 20, I think it was about 21, and I had a small record deal in England and one in the USA, and I was playing in London, and I had my single launch in London, and it was great, on top of this lovely hotel, all funded and invested by top guys in London, top guys in London. And at the time I'm young and naive, thinking, oh, this is great, all these people are coming to watch me, and all these A&R people and everything. And then I meet this person who is an investor, and he is probably in his, I don't know, late 50s or something, got lots of money apparently, comes up to me, and he's a married man, and starts saying, I've got a house in Barbados, I'd like to take you there. I really like the look of you. I've got lots of money and I want to invest in you. Have you got a boyfriend? And all of this, and making, it's my night, it's my single launch. He's there saying he wants to invest in my career and my life. And it's all so overwhelming. And I end up basically trying to get rid of him. And then my manager at the time says, oh, after the gig, we're all going out for a meal. and it's kind of like 10 o'clock at night at this point in the middle of London. And we end up going for a meal, and this guy ends up coming as well. And then he sits himself right next to me, and then he's there telling me again, I've got a house in Barbados, I want to take you there, you know, I want to make this work, you know, I really fancy you, and you know, it's such a shame that you've got a boyfriend, and all of this. And for me, you know, I've had moments that was like a really, you know, a bad one, but I've had moments of that throughout most of my career. And that started for me when I was probably about 17, going from, you know, now I'm 32 nearly, and you know, touch wood, it hasn't happened recently, but yeah, that's kind of my biggest moments really of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Anybody else?
Savage.
Yeah. I've got a similar story. But first of all, you know, I sort of want to draw attention to the fact that you had to deal with that as a teenager, you know, arguably a kid.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are kind of nodding along, going, "Oh yeah, we've had versions of that, or witnessed versions of that." And you know, I've certainly had versions of that as a younger musician, and yet I had a version of that a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, with the really drunk owner of a Swiss hotel who had hired our band to play. His family do, with his wife and child, and his teenager, was sat at bum level to me. She sat down, I'm stood up, and the drunken hotel owner steps forward and puts his hand on my bum, and his kid sees. I mean, hey, let alone my own feelings as well, which were of shock. And I you know, I was going to talk about predatory fans, if you like, and sort of say that, you know, as I've got older, I've, you know, maybe learned some tricks, I've got a bit better, a bit more confident in dealing with that. I'd love to say that. What happened was I froze, and I had no tools, and I lost, you know, I like to think I'm a wordsmith. They departed. I was kind of shocked. And the only thing I could do was step forward, off, you know, remove my bum. I couldn't react. I was very stunned. And actually, I think the first sort of normal thought that came in, and it wasn't normal at all, was like, do I say anything? Because this is a really valuable gig.
Exactly.
For the piano player and me. Yeah. So I did that equation. And it was only sort of afterwards that I was thinking, you know, everything deserted me. I felt terrible. I felt, you know, I'd been touched by someone I didn't want to be touched by. And that was really recently. And I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't react. And of course, you know, that's the position that women musicians get put in. The geezers tend not to get that sort of stuff, I hear.
No, but then we do that extra bit of being ashamed about it as well, and thinking about what we should and shouldn't do. But it's not about that, is it? It's about power. And that's what prevents us from doing stuff sometimes, is the power. You know, that night for Alex should have been amazing, but that's your memory of it because somebody took the power away from you, didn't they? And the same to you in that moment. You're thinking, oh, do I say anything and make a scene? Because this is a valuable gig and he could take away other gigs from me. You know, and I don't know about Lou's experiences, but we've had that in Set My Culture and in Creep Cave. We've had people, you know, men come up to us and say, oh, I'll give you this gig, it'll be amazing, but you know, what are you going to do? One of you has to sleep with me, basically, you know. And in that situation, the power hasn't been there as much because they've just been blokes in other bands, you know, and we've been able to kind of fight back. But I don't know if that's prevented us from getting other opportunities. We don't know, but it's the power there, I think, is the really key bit, isn't it? Somebody exerting that over you and making you feel like you have to just step away. It's grim.
I just want to say really quickly as well, like, I don't think, you know, all men are like that. It's nothing like that. But I just think these guys in power at the time, you know, with money in the music industry, who are the top dogs, supposedly, you know, and they're the ones that are just preying on the younger females, that they think, oh, yeah, I can make a bit of money out of you and maybe, you know, quite fancy you as well. You know, it's just like seedy stuff, you know.
I do think there's been, like you say, Ali, I think there's been some improvements over the last 10 years, I think. I've always sort of been quite aware of like men's intentions. So I kind of probably have the face that no one wants to come near me anyway half the time. So not a lot of that has actually happened to me as in during music. But one thing that, or a couple of things that I struggle with is image and like keeping up your appearances and your looks, and, you know, being worried about not looking like you used to. Whereas I think men perhaps don't have that problem because it's more acceptable. They don't have to wear any makeup, they don't necessarily have to have an image so much, but women forever have, you know, we need to look at the certain part to kind of get the job and, you know, be attractive to a very male based industry. And like a couple of times my confidence has been knocked. I know it probably sounds silly, but, you know, I have stage signs at all of my gigs, and if I don't look like my stage sign, I've had you know, a few people in the past sort of saying, well, that's not you, you don't look like that, because obviously on that day you have a makeover, and you can't have a makeover every gig that you go to, you know. And I think men find it quite easy to just put that out there, and they don't realise what repercussions that will have on someone's mental health. And another little thing, I just think, I have noticed that, you know, I think if you're in a group of guys, they'll often talk over you. And even recently when I was working with a band, and they were lovely people, but I noticed I couldn't actually get my voice heard, and it was my bloody band. You know, I should be directing it, kind of thing. And, you know, people just weren't, you know, they sort of know better. And I'm quite subservient anyway, so I probably allow that to happen. But moving forward, someone said to me today, you just need to keep talking through that noise. And but like I said, I do think it's got better. And as Ali said, I've worked with so many nice men since, you know. And I did a gig in London, and somebody came over, a gentleman came over from Berlin who's a super fan, and he is still investing in me now. And he's never like, he paid for me to go to Berlin last year and have a music video done. So there's a huge amount of, and actually I'm working with loads of really great men. So yeah, I'm grateful, but I think a lot of people get taken advantage of.
Yeah, I had an experience many years ago when someone grabbed my bum at a club, and he was somebody I knew from my place of work, and they grabbed it once, and when I turned around, they kind of went away. They did it twice, and then I grabbed their hand and I said, look, you're on my turf here. I know everybody here. If you move, this guy, this person will get you, and you'll be barred for life. And after that, you were completely apologetic. And there's been a lot of times in the punk scene when I thought people were brilliant. They will really support women who are in position of vulnerability. And I think, as you all said, in the past 10 years, I've seen a real change. Like, most men are really on board with protecting women and challenging other men who are overstepping the boundaries. Women are a lot more vocal as well. When they see another woman being harassed, they'll get in there straight away. And this is really good. I think it's a very positive change.
Yeah, it's talking about it, isn't it? And actually,
yeah,
us even this today, you know, saying that it does happen. It's not been talked about in the past. I think the more things that have come up, and like, you know, big figures in music and film and stuff, you know, it's come out that they're actually being really bad to women. So it is improving, as you say.
Yeah. One of the things that came in the report of Be the Change Women in Music 2022 is that one of the main problems is that men, even those who want to be allies, they do not understand the gravity of the problem. Sure. And doesn't well. They don't think that it's that heavy.
It's interesting. You know, I said that my thoughts have departed me, and then I've written down here in the notes, well, what's the solution? And it is education, and it's cultural education. And yeah, you say last 10 years. I mean, we're talking about stuff that happened in the 20s, in the 1800s. You know, yeah. To artists, to female artists, it's still happening. Culture does actually take quite a long time And it takes even longer without education and messages and us sharing our stuff. Obviously, we're standing on the shoulders of like the sisters that stood up and said, you know, we need to change how this goes on. But the struggle continues, right? And I guess I sort of wanted to take my shock and turn it into a learning point for me, and perhaps do some reading around that. And I've written down, you know, get the tools to use when you're being predated on. Get the support and backing of your male band members. Well, band members, especially the guys. And you did that, Lou, right? I wasn't on my territory. I was on the guys' territory. So
Yeah,
that's different dynamic. But your point is, you know, get some help and enlist fellas in it, and that's a way to educate them as well. They don't want their sisters being predated on if they're cool men. You know, no one wants that world, really.
No.
So, education.
Yeah.
Then again comes in feminism is always told that those who are the vulnerable ones on the receiving end of any level of oppression, or in this case, you know, harassment, we should not be the ones educating others, but usually we end up being the ones. So reports like this or conversations like this, any public statement of the situation, I think it helped those in positions of power. So we have our own power as well, but of acknowledge that there is a problem. Any other comments in terms of those 4 challenges that the report released? Like the perception gap, for example, is, Joanna, you were saying about being perceived as this, you know, the pretty woman. We have to be pretty all the time. So how does that affect anybody else in this roundtable? Do you also feel the same, that your appearance is something that it costs you more, it's an extra effort in your performance? Somebody was saying that, I don't remember where I saw it, it's in a documentary or in a film, but the women should be paid more just because we have to buy makeup.
Oh yeah.
And, you know,
get a makeup artist. I'm not really a makeup person, but I've now feel like I have to, just because it's accepted. Like, you have to look a certain way. You can't, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It could be my confidence. It could be my confidence as well, but I only think that's been caused by the judgments that have been made about me in the past, if you see what I mean.
Sure. It's a funny one, that makeup. I like wearing it. I spent my 20s not wearing makeup on stage as a kind of, what is it?
Statement. Yeah.
And growing my leg hair and just being me. And I'd like to think I'm still me and happy to grow my leg and arm hair, and you know. But actually, I don't know. I've come into the idea that it's plumage and decoration. But I suppose what I'm saying is I feel like I'm owning the decision, and I like wearing. You know, I like glamming up and being flamboyant. I like guys that are flamboyant and love dressing up. I love costume. That's part of the drama of showbiz, right? You know, even if it's showbiz in a village hall around the corner. However, it's about the owning it, isn't it? If I suppose it is imposed by a culture that prizes young, beautiful women wearing makeup in front of. But I don't know. Maybe there's
different styles as well, isn't it? Like you, Mama Tokus, you have this kind of the vintage sometimes, or the cabaret style. You use a lot that, but whether Alex doesn't use that, and Joanna is different as well. So I guess that is how you use your style, being a woman performing on a stage.
I suppose the thing is the variety is great, isn't it? Yeah. So like there's a made-up artist, there's a non-made-up person, but when you see the value of the music and the artistry, so you know, and I think that's changing. I think that we are seeing lots of different types and looks of people, you know, and that's coming with different identity.
Yeah, I think as well, like, it depends on what your art is. It's like, with me and Joe, for instance, and Joe, I totally get what you're saying, because when I was younger, I was always like the tomboy. I didn't want to wear makeup. Like, everyone would be like, you need to brush your hair, Ali. And I was like, well, I don't want to. And
Not again.
yeah, not again. It hurts. And now, I tour a lot, so I'm on the stage like every night, and it's like for 2 weeks at a time, every night a gig. Get to the dressing room, it takes me an hour to put my makeup on, curl my hair, get my outfit on, and then I think, oh, I feel fat today. Oh, these tights feel, it's just that battle every day. And it is exhausting. But then I also think, because I play country, folk music, it goes with the style. I am natural. And like you said, Mama Tokus, like, you can own that style. I can own being natural.
Yeah.
I can own being a bit beachy and a bit bedraggled, and and I love that. I love that my skin feels good, and I think for me, when I put loads of makeup on, it doesn't suit me. It's just like I feel weird. I'm like, oh, I look like a different person, and I like. But I like wearing subtle makeup, but then when I go out, I'm like, oh yeah, I love putting my makeup on. But it's only now in my 30s that I'm really enjoying it. And before, it was just it was horrible, and everyone, like, my mum and dad would be like, why are you wearing makeup? Because back then for them, makeup was such a big thing, it's like,
Yeah.
So the times are changing now. I think it's more owning who you are, what, your personality. If you're not into makeup, there's nothing wrong with that, or if you want to wear subtle makeup on stage, it's you, isn't it? It's whatever you are and you feel comfortable with.
I don't know. I think depending on the nature of your show, like I'm in a pirate band called the Boarding Crew, we have to dress pirate. We have to be as flamboyant as possible because you want people to see you coming and think, oh yeah, these guys. And I suppose when you're playing a show as well, because of the light, you've got to put a lot more makeup on anyway to show your face more. And I don't know for you, but I think part of the show is your music. And part of the show is the performance. So the more flamboyant you get, the more eye-catching it gets. I mean, we all have different ways of presenting ourselves, but I think there's something to be said for going a bit crazy. This said, it's interesting. I've seen promoters who tend to promote a lot of bands which are female-fronted, even though that's not a genre. And the women in bands who had modeling careers on the side, or who were who are sometimes naked on stage, I'm thinking of a particular band from South Africa who made that their trademark. They tend to get the big gigs. It's interesting. There is definitely a pretty privilege in that sense.
Don't you think that's a bit
even in
up,
country?
Sorry? I get what you're saying, Lou. Like, I totally agree. But don't you think also that's just a little bit like, a bit messed up as well? It's like you should just be able to be you, and just like, it shouldn't be that, the crazy ones that dress this way get the gigs, because they look that way. It's like, what about their music? Surely it should be more about their music.
Well, I mean, dressing beautifully alone is not going to make you a good musician. That's true, isn't it?
But on that point, like, if thinking about perception, I don't know if anybody else gets this, but in the bands that I've been in, I often feel, and I don't know if this is something I just feel or if it's something that's been put onto me to feel, is that often we feel like we have to be better musicians as well. To be like, look, we actually can play our instruments. We had a review in My Culture once, and somebody wrote about us that it was like we were a primitive band smashing rocks against our guitars. I was like, actually, I put loads of effort into that. Really thought about the musicality of it, and it was an interesting review. But again, it's that perception, isn't it, around how much of a musician you are, how well you know your instrument. I had a guy I had a guy come up to me. It was in the early days of Summer Culture. I've been playing music for years in loads of different bands. This guy came up to me and started literally adjusting the tone on my electric guitar whilst I was playing. I was like, what? Yeah.
I had that with Husbands and Knives at the beginning, exactly that. And it's incredibly humiliating. And I thought, who the heck are you to dare do that?
Yeah. Maybe it was the same guy. It was just yeah, it was humiliating, because I'd set my guitar up how I wanted it to be set up, but it was that presumption that we didn't know. And we have this as a band as well, with sound technicians, quite often male sound technicians, trying to get across what sound we want, even the fact that we want a sound check. You know, we headlined a show I don't want to say when it was, but we headlined a show, and we arrived really early. We said, right, we want to be here for a sound check. And they said, oh, it's not going to be a time, you're just going to have to line check it. We're like, we're headlining this festival, you're telling us we can't have a sound check? What? You know, and it's those kind of conversations that I wonder if those are the same conversations that male musicians have. And I don't know, because I've got no point of reference.
Yeah, but you could turn that round in a way, because I was very influenced by Caitlin Moran.
Oh yeah.
When she put a book out, How to Be a Woman, ages ago, and she said, "Oh, feminism. You know, this is my version of feminism. Yeah. Is it okay for the guys to do it? Okay, so it's okay for the girls to do it. So in a you know, with that guy coming on trying to sort your sound out with a guitar." It's like, you know, I guess, would he do that with another guy? No. No way. So, you know, in a way, I've taken what Caitlin Moran said, and that's helped me judge it a bit, you know, and go, mate, you wouldn't be doing that on a guy's guitar, you know. And actually, I don't know, I've never been in that position to say that, but someone didn't want to sound check me around a particular condenser mic that me and my 4-part harmony group had been practicing around for months. So then didn't have time, and I was like, this is our sound. You wouldn't do that with a guitarist, would you? You'd be miking it up. And he backed away, and he did it. He did the sound check. And so what that led me to, you know, although I've told you a story about how I was unassertive, having my bottom touched, that I feel that I've had to learn extra assertiveness skills in the sort of technical areas. And actually, I've bought my own PA and learnt it, you know, and gone, so that I cut that little loop out of like some geezer leaving me down in the mix. I'm a singer, so, you know.
So then it becomes a chicken egg situation, Katie, isn't it? Because women need to be more assertive, but because the industry is demanding more from us, and society in general are demanding more from us. So what for example, in the case of this report, says that the confidence in women is low because we being constantly underestimated. So it's the whole society, the whole environment keeps you that, and then you have to push forward. So you push for, you know, you move forward, like many of us have learned to be a bit tougher, but then the new generation need to learn that all over again. And that's when, you know, it shouldn't have to be that way. No. But anyway, can I propose another topic then within that before we go to your creative process? I'm really interested in asking you how you all write songs, which must be very interesting. And just to cover the fact that we are all here cisgender women, and we all have to go through menstrual cycles. And yes, menstruation is a word, which affect us all physically. And sometimes some of us have to go through pregnancy and motherhood. Do you think, I think that it's anybody here have children?
Not
apart
me.
from me? No? Okay, so that's what I thought. So do you think that not having children has helped to move your career forward? And if so, why?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't had children yet because I want to get a bit further with my career, which might sound stupid, but I've literally always thought I can't have a child because I want to go off. I want to be free to go off and do whatever at a drop of a hat. And you know, today I got a phone call for an opportunity to play with a big band, you know, and I could just say yes, and I wouldn't be able to. I'd have to think, oh, you know, this, that, and the other. But it is getting a bit to the wire now. You know, I'm 34, and there's that pressure as well. Like, I'm literally putting music before children. But that's my choice, and I'm you know. But I just feel like it would be so difficult because music's quite hard to make a living from. You know, unless I had lots of money behind me, where I, you know, which I don't at this stage.
Yeah, I want to say as well, like it's really, for me touring, and I've got this whole year touring and next year booked already. Touring, I've toured a lot. And thinking if I had a kid, how could I do that? I can't just have a baby and then be like, right, see you later, I'm off for a month, But also I'm getting married in May, and then, my partner is he's not getting any younger. He really wants to be a dad. I really want to be a mum. We've just bought this house, and we're basically saying, maybe at the end of the year we start trying, or next year, but I don't really want to leave it any longer. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm still going to be a musician. I'm still going to tour, whether I take a break for a little bit and then, he's the stay-at-home dad and I go off and tour. He's happy to do that. We've got parents around that can help. That's just how it's going to have to be. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I can't work and do, I can go away and earn a lot of money and then come home and be at home for a month, and then I can go away again for 2 weeks, earn a lot of money, come home. That's how it's going to work. And I'm just like, I'm not sacrificing the fact that I want a family, because I just don't think that's right, and I don't want to get to, being much older than I am and then thinking I'm going to be an old mum. Like I want to be a grandma. I want to have, family is big for me, but I've struggled with that, Joe, so much. And even thinking,
and you were sensible. You got yourself a partner who's not your guitarist. That's my only problem. Shit.
I know. But you know what? The other big thing for me, and this is like the huge thing, I was thinking, if I'm pregnant, who's going to want to, book me for a tour? Who's going to want me in their band? Are they going to think, well, we can't have Ali in the band now because she's going to have a baby and then she's going to be out? I don't want that to happen. Like, I want to be like, look, I'm pregnant, but I'm here. Like, I'm going to gig up until the day that I can't gig anymore. If I can't play guitar, I have to play piano for a little bit, or whatever. But basically for them not to drop me because I'm a pregnant woman, that's my biggest fear. I'm like, oh, and then I've lost all my income. So it's like, right, but the thing, for me, I'm lucky that I have my own thing as well. So it's such a, it's
It's an issue, and I would like to contribute to that because it seems that I'm the only mom in this roundtable, and just for representation. I was on my early 20s the singer of a metal band, and I loved it. I didn't have to play guitar; I just had to sing. And the in Spanish versions of "Killing in the Name of," "Holiday in Cambodia," and things that I loved, the Spanish version, and around music. I got pregnant. We went to radio. We were going to have a record deal to record our first album, and I got pregnant. That was the end. I do other things now that are more accommodating to my family life, but that was the end. When my male friends in Ecuador and here can have as many children as they want, male musicians, and they keep touring and gigging and recording as if nothing has happened. So another thing that sometimes people do not understand. Also, for example, here in Plymouth, when my children were younger, is the fact that people, give you gigs in the evening, obviously, and they put you at the end if they really like you. And then I was thinking, I have to take my children to school the next day at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's not, it is a different reality, and people need to consider that. It shouldn't be like that.
And touching on that, I totally get that as well. I also think that nowadays things are different, and I think that, I go as well, thinking of a friend of mine called Els Bailey, who, Joe obviously knows as well. She had a child before she became quite big. She's now touring. She's, her husband is not a musician. He's at home with the baby, and it works for her. She can go off and tour. She can tour the world if she wants to. As long as she's got that family unit at home, which is lucky to have. That's very, I understand it's not always the case.
No.
But if you've got a good network around you, and your partner as well, can be the stay-at-home dad, he can be the one that's kind of more present. And even if you can go off for a week or so, or even just the odd gig here and there every week, you can balance that out. I think it will be hard and it will be tough, but it's just something I think it's doable.
I will add, I'm sorry that I'm here. I would say it's a question of a certain, it becomes part of something that we call privilege as well, because if you come from a more working class and sometimes happens that you end up being a single mom, or sometimes things don't work. And for example, in my case, I'm an immigrant. What happens if you're a certain, what if you're a disabled woman, and situations like that where those things are not always in place.
Yeah.
So it's just an extra comment.
And that's very true. And yeah, I totally, that is much harder. Yeah.
Let's go to your creative process. Sorry, Lou, go.
Okay, so I was saying to you last time, Anairda, when I saw you, that when I was touring with Seize the Day, which is my partner's band, the lead singer, when she had a baby, she'd take the kid on tour, and they always had part of the contract, if you want, was that they wanted somebody to look after the child for the duration of the gig. And I thought that was brilliant. That, I think, if you're in a hippie environment, it might be easier than if you're in a punk environment when people might have had a drink, and you don't know that if you're going to get your child looked after by someone else, then, obviously you're taking a risk. So although it can be done, you can't always do it depending on the environment you're performing in.
Yeah. Really.
Okay, let's go to the creative process. How do you all write songs? What is your creative process towards making a song?
Okay, I'll go first then.
Go on, Joe.
I think generally my own music, it usually comes with chords first that kind of stir something inside of me. But that might have been, that's actually not true really, because that's quite often inspired by some lyrics that I've said to myself. So it'd be like lyrics, then the chords, and then the song. Well, to be honest, I'm not a particularly prolific songwriter, and I'm not very good at finishing songs, but I always get these lovely nuggets that inspire me to, and I've got a bank of them now. So yeah, usually I feel something, then I say a lyric, and then I go to the piano and I create something that stirs me, and then develops from there. Anyone else?
I've got a piano behind me, and because I'm pretending that I know how to play it, I don't. I'm learning. I'm backwards engineering a piano. Instruments are really hard, aren't they? Which is why my creative process starts with words. But I'm more of a wordy, So, but it's the music of the words. So I guess as you said, Joe, you said nuggets, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that's a great term, because I pick up little nuggets. I've always got a notepad, always in the handbag, notepad and pen, or like on the phone, so inveterate collector.
My problem
like a little
is
magpie picking up nuggets,
Yeah. And what people say online, like what people say on telly, sometimes someone will just say a phrase, or even in passing, I'll write that down, because I love the three words together just create something, a really nice meaning. And my dad always said, he's an artist, that nothing's really original actually. And I found that really hard when I was younger. I was like, what? I'm going to create something completely unique to me, but actually it's all just rechurned ideas. My art is probably just being influenced by hundreds of different people. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. And I had to get past that back. I was thinking, well, I'm 21. I'm going to write the best song everyone's ever heard. This is me. Listen to my voice. And it took me ages to learn that, you suck in everything that's around you, don't you? Musically, the records have been played to you when you were 5, or your dad's artistry, or your mum's radio play. I don't know, and then you suck it in, and it all churns around inside you. And if you're lucky, and if you've got a sort of creative bent, you can make something of that. And I think the other thing is getting out the way. Sometimes stuff comes to me, and I haven't written that, it's come through. I'm not the most prolific writer either, but when it comes out, it's sort of fully formed. It's like I've had a gestation period. And then the egg inside has come out, and I don't really need to edit a lot of it, but that's mostly
That's
words.
good. That's good that you got the confidence there as well, because quite often I create something and I have to play it to someone, and then if they don't like it, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you do the artist's way, right, they say don't that's a course in recovering artists. It's brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant. Changed my life. Yeah. And one of her sort of rules is don't tell them about the little baby yet until the little baby's a toddler. So,
I don't know if anyone's ever found that, but you can sit at your table trying to write a song and it's just trash. And then all of a sudden at 2 a.m, you'll be like, now, and you wake up and you write the whole thing down and it's brilliant. And it's come from above. I think it's the Druids have this concept of awe and divine inspiration. I think there's definitely a muse of punk rock that zaps songs into people. Does that speak to you?
Yeah, definitely.
I found that I've got a few different ways, and at the moment I find it when I'm playing an instrument, and I've just bought a banjo, so I love playing the banjo. And the other day I was playing it, and it's 4 strings, so it's open tuning, and it's just great. I can just noodle around a little bit more, and then I'll sort of play a riff, and then I'll just kind of freestyle a melody, and with gobbledygook words, the words are just it's just just doesn't mean anything, and then I just seem to be able to get some syllables out of that, and then start writing the words after that. I'm starting with the chords first, the rhythm first, thinking about the beat, whether I want it to be upbeat or sad or whatever, and then the words come second, and that's been really great. And there's another way of doing it as well for me, where I free write loads of words, and just don't. I set myself a task of 10 minutes, and I just free write for 10 minutes, and then whatever I've got out of that, I put into a structure, and then I write music onto that. So yeah, for me it's different a lot, yeah, it's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, Alex, that free writing. So in Creep Cave, 2 bands, Summer Culture was very much led by Coops, our lead singer. She really was there with the lyrics. She kind of pretty much wrote all of that independently, and then we would we'd chip in. So sometimes we'd come up with funny ideas. It might be something somebody said in the pub, like you were saying, Joe, just hook onto something like that would be hilarious as a song, and then we would make a song of it and collaboratively just make the music. So it might be somebody plays a riff, and then so we always did it in the same room together. Creep Cave's been a little bit more personal, so we've all written songs in the band, we've all written lyrics for different ones, we've all kind of come up with melodies independently and come to the band and said that I've written this, can we make something of it, and then we'll flesh it out together, and we'll kind of do that as a process as a band. But it's been what I've been really into is that free writing, just writing down my feelings, writing down, I'm really angry about this, or I'm upset, or I'm happy, whatever that feeling is, and writing it down and going through that process, and then just editing it down, cutting out words, adding in new ones, doing that, and just coming together as a band really, and just figuring it out, how do we make this little nugget of something into something that's substantial and tangible, and something that we can play out there. And what you were saying, Mama, about just having that confidence, I'm going to write the best song in the world. We're almost the opposite of a band. We write things, we go, I've written this, I hope we like it, and then gingerly perform it. I
want to say that was misplaced confidence. That was misplaced confidence. I was young, that was bullshit confidence. So go your way.
You need that, don't you? You need it. It's like fake it till you make it, isn't it? The amount of male bands I've seen who I've just thought, you're awful. They're brilliant. And they get all these gigs.
Yeah.
I want to make a pitch for stealing as well. I meant to add that. Just downright stealing. And actually that links to what Joe said. I had a singing teacher and she berated me for not stealing. And she said, go and listen to Phoebe Snow. You sound like her. Go and try and copy her. And that's it. Ego came in and went, no, I'm my own artist.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. And what that was a barrier. Because actually, as she said, and it took me 10, 15 years for that penny to drop that she'd given me when I was 21. but I hadn't clocked it, was that if I copied that kind of vocal thing, or maybe those words, that when it came out of my mouth, it was my thing. Then there'd been some alchemy. It was my thing, even if I was doing, and actually you wouldn't just copy, you add on yourself, or I don't know, but there's this alchemy that happens when it goes through you. And if you get out the way, and if one pushes one's ego out the way, which is tricky, actually that's where the good stuff is. And that's when you can be ready for the divine. And it's not just a punk rock muse, It's maybe no, it's great. Or maybe there is one for that. But there's a muse for all of us if we can get out the way and receive it.
Yeah.
That's why the muses are female,
Hey!
And there's one for each one of us. That's 7 words.
Yeah, love it.
Can you mention one favorite song of yours and why?
What do you mean yours? Do you mean of our own work?
You have made, yes. One of your songs that, Alex song, Mama Toku song that you really like and why?
I'll start.
You go.
I really like a song that I wrote a few years ago called Home, and going back to the International Women's Day, I wrote it about my mum, and it's very folky. It's quite sort of, I would say, I was very influenced by a band called The Staves, which you guys might have heard of, 3 sisters, 3-part harmony, very English, beautiful, honest music. And I was living in Cornwall, and I was going through a really shit time, I didn't swear, with a guy. And then basically my mum was saying, will you come home and just come and live here for the summer, come and live here for the winter? And I was saying, no, Mum, I'm in my 20s and I've moved out ages ago and I'm happy here. And, for me, it was like quite an empowering song. I've never written a song about a family member before. And it's actually quite a happy song as well. Normally my songs are quite downbeat. But it's just, it fell out of me, like you said. I think I can't remember who said that earlier, but it literally just came to me straight away. Probably wrote it in about half an hour, and it was just brilliant. Each quite a simple structure, but just really powerful. And even now when I play it, it's probably my favorite one in the set still, and that takes a lot. I gig a lot, so for me to still enjoy playing it time and time again and sing it with other people and the band, and it's just, I just love it, absolutely love it. So that's mine, I would have said.
Somebody else?
I wrote a song with Husbands and Knives, which was called Bloom, and it's about how I was bullied when I was in school for being a late developer, an early developer. No, sorry, a late one. I'm silly. Anyway, but anyway, massively bullied for 2 years, and with that song, I managed to really come to a point in my life when I was feeling better about it. And that song was the F off to the bully song that I always wanted to write. And there's not a line I would take from that song. I think it's perfect. It's perfect in my head, and it comes out perfect. And it's been very much a healing process. That song was the moment when I thought, right, I'm over it. That's it. That healing process is finished. No, I'm just putting the lid on it. And that experience is behind me. And that's why I like that song so much.
Brilliant. I'd like to put forward a song that I wrote, because and rather like Lou just said, I suppose you believe in it, or you said as well, a song that you have written that you really believe in and the truth of it. And mine is very true, and it's comedy, but I really mean it. And it's about not having children. And sorry about the ladies that want to have children, but I was like, I kind of wanted to own the fact that I'd chosen not to. And and I directed some humor at that, and I put it on the album, and Vince Lee played on it, and so I really like it musically. It's a swing song, and it's called "I'm Just Too Busy to Reproduce." Yeah, and I feel, and it's kind of like, in a way, it's like why have every woman got to make a baby? You know, I don't believe that we are. The world is creaking because, you know, everyone, the oil culture possibly suggests that we've got to make, all of us have got to make a baby, you know, and so it was like there was a serious intent beneath it. But I also I wanted to make it funny. Well, as a side order to that, every time I've kind of busked that in the street, loads of kids walk by, or mums with prams stop and go, listen to the lady. I'm like, oh no, it's about not having kids. It's not about hating kids. It's not that. It's just about.
No, it's about choice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Bess and Joe, we are kind of getting close to the end. So I'm gonna start to keep pushing you. So Joe and Bess, your favorite songs of yours?
It's really hard to think of one. I've been sat here listening to you all, but also racking my brains thinking, you know, when you're at like a workshop and there's an icebreaker and you're sat there thinking, shit, what am I going to say? This is where I am.
It's me next.
It's you next. You've got this rambling time now to think of one. I think for me at the moment, I think just to draw on relevant songs, what we've all been talking about. In Creep Cave, we have a song called Educate, and the chorus is we need to educate our boys, and it's all about the track is about feminism. It was a response to the murder of Bobby Ann McLeod in Plymouth, and actually what led to that person feeling like they could take a young woman's life, you know, and actually what do we need to do? Is it to teach girls not to stand at bus stops to go and meet their boyfriends in town? No, that's not the case. We should be teaching boys not to prey on girls, like that. We should be teaching boys, and we're talking about little boys. That's where it needs to be. We need to be teaching little boys to respect girls, respect their choices, whether that's whatever those choices are. So that probably would be my favorite song, not necessarily to play, but the message of it I think is my favorite for Creep Cave, and it's probably the song that gets the best response as well, weirdly, from men. They really love it. We get loads of men coming up to us going, oh, it's a brilliant song. Go, good, go and send it out there then. Go and give it to your male friends, go and give it to your brothers, your nephews, your grandchildren, whatever. We need to be talking about these issues with men and boys. So that would be probably my favorite one that we've written.
I think for me, because I always have to be different, I think it's the one that I'm working on that I haven't actually released yet, and I struggle quite a lot with my mental health and generally keeping the faith in what I'm doing and just getting a little bit bogged down with negativity. So I've started writing a song, and it's called at the moment The Grateful Song, because I always have to sort of self-help and listen to something that makes me, and so I've literally just wrote a song in the morning. Sorry, it's only a verse at the moment, but I'm really excited about it. You know, when you're really excited to go back to it, and it's 3 chords, and it's literally saying things like, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my legs that are connected to my knees and they're willing and able. I'm grateful for this cup of tea that's been made for me, and I'm grateful for tonight's show where I'm going to go and perform. So, and I'm really excited about that because, you know, and then when I wrote it, I was a bit like, oh, this reminds me of the theme that Nina Simone did, which is like, I've got my legs, got my do, you know, that one. And I'm not trying to copy. And I was like, oh no, people are going to think I'm copying her, you know, with that concept. But it just came out, and it will be a song, hopefully, that's, because I feel like I'm quite privileged, especially compared to someone like Nina, who went through completely different, way worse things than I would have ever go through. However, that concept of actually stopping when you're feeling negative and just seeing like a warm cup of tea and just like taking it really back to basics. So I'm looking forward to developing that. That's the one for me. It's The Grateful Song. Don't take my idea, anybody.
Stealing's fine. It's fine.
Look, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go online, and Katie's gonna have this song called The Grateful Song, and she's like, "What?"
Yeah, but when it comes out of my mouth, it will be different.
Okay.
Not that kind of stealing.
I'm only joking.
Very good way to put it.
But I said it here first.
So we originally agreed that we're going to finish around 8:15. Is that okay for you? For you all? Yeah. So so we have time for you to ask any other questions to anybody. There are 2 questions that I really don't want to let you go without asking you. One of them being, the first is, what would you ideally need in this industry for you to progress as a musician? What should be there that's still not there? And then the next will be an advice for the new generation of female musicians, especially in this area. One at a time.
Your first question, I think it takes me back to a conversation I had with Lou a little while ago around geography. And actually, I think one of the things that I'd really like in the music industry to get a bit further is not have to live in London.
Yeah.
You know, to have a bit more of a broad range of, you know, A&R people around the country. So I think that would make a big difference to us as a band. You know, we've all got a lot of commitments. We can't just up sticks and live somewhere else, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. For your second question, my advice to anyone up and coming is just baby steps, basically. Like, as long as you can see progress year on year, keep doing what you're doing and just take action rather than just baby steps. It's all like a real process, and there's lots of different levels of success. It depends what you want, but you know, there's a very small percentage of people who are going to be Adele and who, you know, are going to be Ed Sheeran. So don't value that, like, don't compare yourself to them. Like, there's huge amount of different layers of success below that. You could say below, but is it below? If you're doing what you love and you're making a living, for me, which I am, then I'm saying this today, tomorrow I'll be bawling my eyes out because I didn't get that gig or something. But you know what I mean? It's just like, keep working hard, and year on year, if you can see progress, and that is a really positive thing.
Yeah, I'd say mine kind of boils down to money, really. First of all, I think as a punk band, there's not much money unless you do covers or you're established and you've been there for a number of years. It's easier if you live in London, just like you, Liz, was saying. So one thing I've noticed is you're only worth as much as you think you are. For many years with my first band, we used to say, oh, like, we were a beginners band, we'll charge like 50 quid, 60 quid. And after a while, you realize that actually, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you say I'm worth 200 quid or I'm not getting out of bed, then they'll think you're worth 200 quid. You know, there's bands, the difference between a band that makes money and an equally good band who doesn't is because they don't ask. In my experience, it's been like that.
I think, I haven't got anything for the first question, but for the second one, my advice would just be, like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And, you know, try and create as many, contacts, try and, you know, go to as many events as you can, try and say yes to, you know, as many opportunities as you can, obviously within reason. If they're bad opportunities, don't obviously go and do that. But if they're gigs, if they're, you know, things that let you travel places, be confident. You know, if you want to take someone with you to feel more safe, do that. You know, obviously you can judge a situation if it's unsafe, but I just think if you don't say yes to things and have that little drive behind you, you're going to miss out on a lot. And I think, you know, you guys are right about the London thing, but I think for me personally, and I was in London, you know, in my early 20s, I had to be there, but actually a lot more has happened to me and for me since living in Plymouth. And I've created my own opportunities, and I've managed to tour America, to tour Europe and the UK, and still do the same thing. And that's not come from A&R guys in London. You know, that's come from making contacts, working hard, and, you know, just, you can use the internet now for anything. Zoom, you can use, you know, you don't need to be in London paying to play, you know, in front of A&R guys. And actually, that is a dying breed these days. Record labels don't exist unless you are signed to EMI. You can do it yourself and, you know, learn the skills, learn how to do social media, learn how to be a businesswoman. That's the thing. Take away the music, you need to learn business. That's my advice.
Yeah, Alex, you're right to point to, like, maybe the destruction of a paradigm. I kind of hope, you know, the days of an advance on your difficult second album that can take you to the farmhouse with you and your band, can like hunker down and make this incredible thing. They just don't exist anymore. And the internet has arrived, and you know, opportunities for direct action are there. And I wonder if what's missing from that, and I'm not sure it's not just female musicians, but I you know, there's been a lot of individualist culture, hasn't there, in the last sort of couple of decades. And yet actually there's a hankering for togetherness and cooperatives. And something I'm interested in is the commons. I'm not necessarily a particularly political party animal, but I'm interested in new or not new, old and sort of returning systems of organisation that I think can help in my version of the music business, which is independent, not on a label, using the internet, using marketing skills that I've grown, right? But you know, here we are all pumping away at the coalface, but we're still sort of individuals, aren't we? Whereas where are the lateral connections? It's not hippie. It's kind of like, you know, maybe we need to strike out and explore again new ways of organising and moving forward in things such as cooperatives or commonses, where we can be individuals, but we can come together as a strength and learn from each other. I mean, God, I've learned quite a lot from just hanging out with 5 other excellent female musicians locally. You know, I don't know, I feel inspired and ready to go on from like lots of the stuff that I've heard tonight. I put one of the challenges was I thought was a weak network. I don't know, and I hardly meet any other female musicians. And that, I think that's because I'm a singer, and really most of the other female musicians I come across are singers. So I don't know any jazz drummers in Devon that are female. I know one jazz double bassist. You know, I don't know any keyboard women apart from you, Joe, and I've never met you. But in jazz and blues, I haven't come across loads of people because I'm in a sort of weird silo, and I haven't struck out to set up a cooperative or be in a organised in a roundtable organisation discussion, you know. But I wonder if like we're missing a trick by not being together, getting together, communicating.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'd like to see more. I don't necessarily mean a sort of talking shop or anything. I just mean sort of, you know, what are the organisation shapes that we could make that could, you know, stop the A&R men. What about like the working women?
Yeah, I think
that's our time.
To add to that, Katie, is like I think then the punk scene, the women in the punk scene in Plymouth, who are not that many. I think Bess and Lou represent them a lot. They use a lot of do it yourself kind of style. So one of the things that I think Creek Cave started to do is just let's organize our own gigs. Let's organize our own gigs.
I've done that.
But even then, Bess, you want to explain how is that going? Because I also suffer from the fact that I know many female musicians because I work on Feminist Fusion, but I don't have many female musicians who can play with me because they are so busy trying to move forward the things that they do.
Yeah, and I think that's where my London comment came from, really. It was less about, maybe because I mentioned the A&R guys, less about record companies and being signed and stuff. It's more about accessing spaces. So being able to access festivals, being able to play, you know, events that you're going to get seen in lots of different ways. And that's something that we've always struggled with all of the bands I've been in, is breaking out of that, you know, playing gigs because Wheelie from the Bus Station Loonies asks you to actually playing things that are a bit more meaningful and wider audiences. So part of our response to that in Creep Cave is that we're going to put on our own. So we're putting on an all-day event at Leadworks in Plymouth on the 6th of May to showcase as many female, non-binary and trans artists that we can. So it's just about occupying that space. It's basically as many not men as we can get in one area, and it's something that we want to keep doing. So this will be our first one. You know, we've got a load of really good bands. We've got some from slightly further afield coming, but all southwest based. And then it's about looking at, actually, can we do an exchange with other cities, looking at other cities and saying, right, what's your music scene like? Do you all want to come and play in Plymouth? for a day, and then we'll all come to your city and play for a day, and to just try and like mix it up in that way, because I think scenes can get a little bit like insular, and you can all just end up playing in your own town all the time and missing out on what's going on in other towns. And that's where that sharing comes from, isn't it? And I think that's where we could try and break some of that down and meet other musicians. And it's been those sorts of little events that as a band we've met other female musicians and gone, oh wow, they're amazing on bass, look at what she does, that's insane. And picking up on things and learning from each other and having those conversations.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
We could do with a register of female musicians with different genre and events that we all share. So if somebody needs a drummer or anything, we've got a list there and we can contact them. That would be, I mean, I love what you're doing with Creep Cave. I think really with Wax to Witches, we need to get on with it as well. And because the more of us do that, the better it's going to be. And the more confidence we'll get as well as individuals, because we're getting stuff achieved. That's really important. But we should do a directory. That's a really good, that's amazing. We need to do this.
And it's with other bits of music as well. It's not just musicians, is it? There's all of those other support crew that work with us to put on events. So you've got your sound techs, we're really looking to have as many, female, non-binary, trans sound techs that we can have at those events, people doing lighting, people doing all of those technical aspects that normally it's men, isn't it? And it's actually, how do we encourage more women, and how do we, so we've got one person who's come in, she's learning sound engineering at the moment. She's going to be shadowing a female sound engineer that day to give her that confidence, to give her more opportunities to put on those sorts of events. It's just how we do that as a collective, and perhaps this network as well, of talking to each other and going, oh, I know somebody really good at that, oh, I can put you in touch with somebody, and having those networks. And I think that's what you said, Ali, isn't it? It's having those contacts, to go, I can put you in touch with somebody and they're going to be able to open this door for you.
It's interesting that you said about an all-dayer or an all-nighter. I wrote what would be a solution would be, and that's an old idea, really. The idea of a bill, like with 7, 8 and 9 different bands on. I've certainly played in all-dayers in the 90s that had punk back. That had Chris Wheatley on it. That's how old I am, and him. But so there I'm doing my jazz funk over here. Wheatley's doing his bus station loonies over there. All of us, there's a whole span of like interesting different music that just came from. And what happened was we rubbed up against each other, and there were cross-fertilization, and there were ideas, and there was like shared endeavor. And the idea of a band swap with another town, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So those sort of things, God, I'm hyped about that. Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I think is exciting.
Then again, I'm going to insist that in my experience working with female artists in Plymouth is that there is still those of you who are very active are very busy. And those who are emerging or want to jump into the scene lack a lot of confidence. So that gap in between those two things is one thing that is really hard to manage, because sometimes women really need a lot of encouragement to come into the scene. And if our male friends, musicians, don't help, to provide more opportunities, and event organizers for new female musicians to have visibility, then that opportunity of developing, female musicians is not going to happen, or it's not going to happen so soon. But this networking is something that needs to happen. And I love you all. I'm in love. Before we go, I think it's nearly 8:15. Before we go, I need to ask each one of you what's next in your professional, in your music. So tell us about your gigs, albums, events, etc. What is coming for you, and where can people find it, please?
Come on, Joe.
Okay, sorry, I always try and wait for everyone else, and then no one else says anything. So I do dance music as well as my sort of more jazzy soul blues. So I've got a few, I've been on Radio 1 a few weeks ago with a new collaboration. So from that, quite a lot of opportunities of, more collaborations are happening. So I've got, 2 more tracks in the bag, which should be coming out this year. Got one of my own new singles coming out, which is a cover, which is exciting. We'll be playing like with a big band, doing some jazz stuff, and hopefully finally getting my own band together, which hasn't happened yet. Very much apart from the odd gig. And I've got to develop some of these nuggets of ideas into, an album or an EP. I'm not sure. So yeah, lots of kind of development work this year for me, and playing a cool, some gigs out of the Southwest. Got one in London and got one in Brighton.
Thank you.
Yeah, with Wax to Witches, we've only properly started in October, but I think we're very prolific. And so we're recording in April, end of April. We're going to get an EP out, which is really exciting. After this, we're hoping to do a video. And then we're opening for the Verrucas on the 17th of June. And I'm sure there'll be other gigs before that. And with my other band, the Boarding Crew, we'll be doing Bricks and Pirate Festival. And then we're doing Fantasy Forest in Sedley Castle in Gloucestershire. And it's a massive festival when everybody dresses as fantasy characters, and it's absolutely awesome. So it's going to be a very exciting year.
Awesome.
That sounds excellent.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, really good. I want to say that I've got a personal aim this year to record and produce a little vinyl 7-inch single.
Wow.
Just because I like records, and I really ought to make one. That's a personal goal. Immediately on Wednesday, on International Women's Day, I'll be on Phonic FM. That's phonic.fm if you're listening on the interweb. And I'll be with DJ Kerry Seymour, unveiling a new piece of spoken word about Balbo, the goddess of rude female humour. The day after that, I'll be in Totnes Cinema doing a spoken word show. That's the 9th of March. And then later on this month, I'm supporting a Palestinian songwriter called Rasha Nahas, again with some spoken words at the Barrel House on the 22nd. And you can see all of that at mamatokas.com.
Amazing.
Yay. Ladies.
Okay. So I'm recording a new album at the moment, which is about 7 tracks down and another 3 to go. So that should be finished by probably the end of April. And then that will be coming out in September, and then there'll be a UK tour with that one. So it's a double headline tour, me and another guy called Joe Martin. So we'll be playing all around the country for, I think there's about 8 or 9 shows. And that will be out on vinyl probably a bit later, but it'll be out on CD by then, and then also lots of other things to go with that. So that's really exciting. It's taking up a lot of my time. And then I'll also be gigging next Friday at the Bee Bar with my band, which will be great fun. And next Wednesday for International Women's Day as well, I'm on Radio Devon, which is great, from 3:15 in the afternoon. So tune into that one as well. I'll be playing a song live. And then I'm gigging with Seth Lakeman and touring with him all year. So keep a lookout for that as well. That's on his website and on my Facebook page. And then I'm just gigging all year as well. So yeah, lots going on. Oh, and my website's alexhart.com.
Oh, super jealous about all the vinyl, but also going to keep an eye out because I collect a lot of vinyl. So let me know when you've released. That'll be awesome. Creep Cave, well, we've got that event that we're putting on the 6th of May. So that's the coronation weekend. So kind of hoping that a lot of people will have that free and won't be out camping or doing anything more fun than coming to see loads of awesome musicians. We've got a few more tracks. We've already got an EP out, which is on Spotify, iTunes, all of those, that you can go and listen to. But we've got a load more tracks that we're going to be laying down as well in June, I think. So that should be fun to have a second EP out. We're playing on the 11th of March. I think that's at the Nowhere with a band called Atom Smasher. So that should be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to that one. And then we potentially are playing at the Millennium on the 14th of April. So we don't know anything else about it, except we've been asked to play on the 14th of April. So who knows what that is, but keep an eye out.
Cool.
Amazing. Alex, Katie, Lou, Joe, Bess, thank you so much for accepting to be here tonight. And thank you everybody who's watching or will watch this event, this roundtable. This is going to be recorded and it's going to be also released on the YouTube channel of Feminist Fusion for those who are not on Facebook. And so thank you very much. Don't forget, to all of you who are watching this, please like, subscribe, and support the social media of these amazing artists. Their links are on the description of the Facebook event, and also the social media of Feminist Fusion. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's have an amazing and powerful International Women's Day, and long live music.
Long live music.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anairda.